What's up, guys? Welcome to a new episode of It's Lit. It's Dalck. Today we are going to analyze The Night Phase Up. This is a short story by Julio Cortázar, originally by him, translated into English by Mr. Paul Blackburn. All right, let's get started with the lesson. The quick start. What are we going to do at first? The idea of dreams versus reality plays a central role in the story you are about to read. Think about 3 words that describe how you feel when you wake up from a vivid dream. We're going to share and discuss about those thoughts in class, right? Let's get over to the next part. The first thing that we're going to analyze and study for the night phase up is making inferences. All right, but what are inferences? They are nothing but logical guesses based on clues that the text gives you and on your prior knowledge. All right, the idea behind an inference is to comprehend, not only using the information that you can gather from the text, the information that the author is giving you, the information that the author or the writer is providing for you. And when you connect those ideas with your prior or your previous knowledge, that's what makes you go with that famous, I see where it goes. I see what this is. All right, so that's basically what the core of comprehension stands. We have literal information, and then we have inferential information, which sometimes it's not stated directly on the text, but we have to combine it with our prior knowledge about the subject matter. The night phase up includes events in 2 very different settings. This is what makes this story kind of special. As we read, we are going to see and we are going to use story details to make inferences. Inferences about the cultural environment and the historical periods in this story. We're going to see in a few minutes why this story has 2 settings, but basically what we're going to be doing is analyzing and trying to comprehend what's happening as the story goes from one setting to the other, from one plot to the other. We're going to see that. This will help you to develop a clearer picture of the 2 worlds in which the protagonist finds himself. We're going to write down those inferences, and we're going to mark them, and we're going to analyze. We're going to take notes on that as we do the reading. When you make inferences, you need evidence or clues from the text. All right, I'm going to give you 2 examples. This is from the setting 1. I'm going to read it as it is. But they kept him for a good while in a room with that hospital smell, filling out a form, getting his clothes off, and dressing him a stiff grayish smock. They moved his arm carefully. It didn't hurt him. The nurses were constantly making wise cracks, and if it hadn't been for the stomach contractions, he would have felt fine, almost happy. What can we infer from this information? There are several things that we can infer from here. Number 1, he's in a place that smells like a hospital. Probably it's a hospital itself. What is the example of inference? The man is hurt and is in a hospital. He is in a hospital. Yes, there are nurses. It says that he is hurting in his stomach, etc., etc. So the main idea here, or what we can infer, because what is a person doing in a hospital? That person is hurt or is ill. So that's basically what we can infer. But he feels like he's in good hands. There is information in that short paragraph that tells us that he feels good. All right? People taking care of him are happy and competent. Why? Because nurses are constantly making wisecracks. All right? So there's little shots of information around this example that lead us to infer, to interpret that's what's going on in this scenario. In a second example in the setting 2, this is what the evidence or the text gives us. He had to press forward to stay out of the box and get to the heart of the forest. Rapping uncertainly through the dark, stooping every other moment to touch the packed earth of the trail, he took a few steps. What can we infer from here? Number one, he's in a forest. He doesn't feel very well oriented. So the inference example is that the man is in a dark, swampy forest. He's frightened and uncertain, and he is being chased. If there's a trail, maybe he feels like he's being chased. If there is darkness, if there is muddiness, and of course he has to stay out of the box to get to the heart of the forest, the clues are there. He is in a forest, it is dark, maybe it's in the night, he's not feeling confident, he's totally frightened. So all of those pieces, short little pieces of information that we can get from the text, we connect them with our prior knowledge of what is a dark forest like, how it feels to be frightened, how it feels to feel lost. All of that information will help us create an inference in this type. Will help us create an impression of what we can interpret for this type of readings and text. Next up, we're going to analyze, as I was saying a few minutes ago, we're going to analyze plot structure, right? We already know what the setting is. We have an idea what the plot is and what the characters are. Those are the three main elements in narration, all right? But we are also going to look a little deeper into the genre elements of a short story, all right? So it includes 4 basic elements. I just said 3 of them. This is a fiction setting, characters, plot, and a theme. All right, so there are 4 elements that will never be missing in a short story. A fiction setting, or let's just leave it a setting, characters, plot, and theme. We have explained this in previous lessons, and these are the 4 core elements of a short story because they have to interact within them. They have to interact among them, all right? The second thing is that a short story may use a non-linear or disrupted plot structure such as parallel plots. We're going to see that in just a few seconds. That means that you can jump from one to the other. We can have different characters or even the same character jumping into different plots, interacting in different settings, interacting with different other characters. And finally, it can be read in one sitting. That's the best about short story. If you're like me and you don't like reading long novels, long stories, short stories are perfect because you can take just 20-25 minutes, even less, to read a complete short story. So when we analyze a plot structure, what are we going to do? In this case, we have 2 different plots, right? When 2 plots share equal time and importance in the story, they are called parallel plots. A story with this structure moves back and forth between the plots. You're going to see that in the night phase up, the author uses these type of plots, which is parallel plot, and he develops alongside each other and shares the main character. In this case, we're sharing the main character between the 2 plots. As we read the story, we are going to use questions that follow. I'm going to show you that just in the next slide to analyze the parallel plots. How can we analyze these? What are the questions that we may ask about these plots and how they interact within each other? The first thing that we might ask is, how does the parallel plot structure create tension or a sense of anxious anticipation? Okay, what is tension? It's within the same question. The definition is a sense of anxious anticipation. How does this structure, why is it that when I'm in the middle of something that is about to happen, I suddenly change into the other setting and into the other plot? Because the author wants to create tension, a sense of anticipation, a sense of anxiety, anticipation that gets you right there over the edge, and you want to know more, so you want to read and get to the end to see what happens. That is tension. Second question that you may ask yourself to analyze parallel plots is, what is the tone of each plot? Are the tones similar or different? And that is important. That is possible. We have one story with parallel plots, And each plot can be independently according or regarding the tone that the author wants to communicate there. One of them may be in an aggressive tone and the other one can be a peaceful tone. One of them can be like super exciting and the other one would be just very chill tone, a romantic tone. All right, so yes, tones, the attitude with which the author approaches the story, it can vary. It can be the same or it can be different between parallel plots. The third question that we may ask is, how does the author bridge or connect the two plots so that the story flows smoothly from one plot line to the other? This doesn't mean that we have two different stories. This means that probably the main character, as it is in the case of The Night Face Up, the main character is living two things at the same time. Something is happening inside his head and something very different is happening in the reality. That's basically what we are going to see in this lesson. All right. But the question is, what techniques does the author use in order to connect these two settings, these two plots, these two different types of actions that the one and only main character may be performing in both of them? All right. Depending on how smooth or how rough this change between plots is, we may like or dislike the story. Because some people would say, I don't like the way he switches between plots. It's abrupt. It's too sudden. I was trying to figure out something from the first plot and then it changed. So it depends a lot on the taste, it depends a lot on how you like the stories to jump between the plots. But the most recommended thing or the best thing to be reading is two plots that smoothly pass from one to the other without so much of tension or so much of suspense happening there, right? The last and the fourth question that we may ask in order to analyze these type of plots is, what is the pace? What is pace? The speed, okay? How fast is each plot developing? What is the pace or the speed of each of the plots? Does the action of each plot move at the same or different paces, right? What happens here, is it such parallel thing that the same that happens in one also happens in the other? Or is one of them moving slower? Do you think, or are you feeling, or are you perceiving that the actions in one are faster, everything develops one thing after the other, super quick, and the other one just goes like, all right, what's coming next? You're left with the sense of, I want to know more. Why am I switching to the other plot if I still need things to know? All right? So that feeling when we get as readers, when we are actually reading a parallel plot story, what's going into there? That's what we call pace, right? So 4 things that we ask about, or that we can ask ourselves about when we are reading a short story with parallel plots are tension, tone, bridge, and pace. Again, tension, what's the suspense? What's the anticipation that I'm creating when I read? Number 2, the tone, what is the attitude about this plot and the other? Number 3, how is the change? What's the switch between one and the other? Is it fast? Is it smooth? How is the author bridging the plots? And then how fast are each of them developing independently or both of them together, right? Now, third thing that we are going to be analyzing here for language conventions in this case is complex sentences, right? A complex sentence has an independent clause and one or more dependent clauses. As you may have studied this already in grammar, we're just going to go through it. It's just a quick review, and we are going to analyze what use the author has in this story of complex sentences in order to develop not only both plots, but also the actions of the main character. Remember, an independent clause can stand alone as a sentence. A dependent or subordinate clause cannot. Complex sentences like the one below in this example in blue from the story, they show the relationship between ideas or events. Let me just read it. When he saw that the woman standing on the corner had rushed into the crosswalk while he still had the green light, it was already somewhat too late for a simple solution. This type of sentences will actually show that the relationship between the ideas or the events that they describe. How are we going to do that? Here's a very quick explanation. We got the two different types of clause separated here. In this example, the dependent clause is highlighted turquoise, and the independent clause is highlighted yellow. What does it mean? Remember that the independent clause can stand alone as a sentence. So when you read it, it was already somewhat too late for a simple solution. That stands out, that stands alone as just a sentence. You can understand it easily. You know that something is happening, but it was late for a solution. That's it, right? It was already somewhat too late for a simple solution. But the dependent clause, which is the one highlighted blue or turquoise, it doesn't stand alone. Even though it's larger, even though it's longer, you still have the sense of something. There's something still, there's something more that I need to know. When he saw that the woman standing on the corner had rushed into the crosswalk while he still had the green light, what? There's something missing. It's a very long clause, but there's still information missing. What happens after that? All right, that's why this clause is dependent. All right, this type of complex sentence reflects the character's thought process. In this case, we are just seeing a description of what was going on in the character's head. Cortázar also uses sentence fragments and run-on sentences to reflect the character's thoughts in the story. As we read, look for complex sentences, run-ons, and fragments, and consider the effect that they have on the style of the story and how the story flows and develops not only the theme, the characters, the setting, and of course, the plots. For now, my friends, a big thank you. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. I'll see you very soon.